back to the channel. This is probably the last running focused video for a long time, as I am going to return to be a cyclist again for the foreseeable future. But, and that is not to say that the marathon has put me off. Far from it. The marathon was a mind-blowing experience. One of the best events I've ever done, and I've done a few. Not marathons, like sporting events. Just the camaraderie, the positivity. We live in a world where we see so much negativity on social media, and you see so much bad in humanity. If you go out to a marathon or even like to a park run, you see that's the best of humanity. I urge you, even if you are a cyclist watching this, to go and visit a park run at 9 a.m. somewhere very close to where you live if you're in the UK, and you'll just see an environment that has no negativity. And I think sport is an incredible thing to bring people together. As I've grown older, I've realised just how important sport is to the world. I want to talk to you what my biggest takeaways were from the marathon, but I think the first things I want to talk about charity, and with that talk about this video's sponsor, which is Win Your Dream Bike, who have supported charity right from the word go. They've supported Little Bleeders, and they've supported just about every charity in between. And so the April draw is closing very soon. This month's charity is the CFC, which is the Cyclist Fighting Cancer. And this month's specially featured bike is a Specialized SL7, a bike that I love, I think's great, and did a video on that bike being great, which in the most part got good feedback, but there was a few that didn't like it. Anyway, it's a Specialized SL7 with SRAM Force on it, but there's a whole host of other bikes, there's a whole host of other prizes. It's £5 a ticket. There's a limit of tickets being sold, so you do have far better odds of winning than entering something like the lottery, or certainly entering Euro Millions. And they've donated over 35 grand to charity since its inception, so there's a win there. There is a win there, even if you don't win. So everything you need is in the link in the description below. Please support them. They support my channel. They support so much more, and I'm thrilled to be working with them. I actually went and visited them at the cycle show just recently, and what a good bunch. Chris Pritchard has so much energy, so much energy. How he did that for 3 days is beyond me, but I saw him for 10 minutes and I was exhausted. I was like, oh, you have so much energy. The marathon. Yeah, I was not a competitor, I was a participant, and I loved it. I was very nervous going into it, and there was no expectation like there is in push bike races. There was I had no job to do other than to get to the finish line, unlike in push bike races. The only thing I needed to do really was have fun. There was a bit of pressure on me. I'd said to a few people I wanted to be closer to 3 hours than 4 hours, and I think I was nervous for two things. I was nervous about the last half. The longest run I'd done in the lead up was a half marathon, which to quite a few people was laughed at because it wasn't too far into the unknown. So that made me nervous. And honestly, I was wondering how my body was going to hold up, because the hardest thing about running as a cyclist is actually the body. I have the aerobic fitness, it's all there, but in terms of my ligaments, joints, intermuscular stuff, it's just not built for being a runner. So I was mostly worried about how my body was going to heal up. I was going to hold up into the latter half. I posted the video you'll see just in one of these corners about my nutrition strategy for the marathon. And let's talk about nutrition strategies, because it was an aggressive strategy. And I second-guessed myself after I read all the comments afterwards, because there was a lot of far more experienced runners than me, which is just about everyone, telling me, am I planning on stopping for a picnic? Arguing that the weight of the fluid on my back would be more of a hindrance than the benefit it would give me. And so I did wind down a little bit what was said, and I went, and a lot of people said like the marathon supports you nutritionally throughout, so you don't need to take all of that or anything for that matter. But I stuck to my guns to a point. I got through 95 grams an hour of carbs and like suitable electrolytes. I don't know the number for electrolytes, but throughout the marathon, and I was very happy. I know I come from a slight advantage where I think my gut is capable of processing that, even under the stress of running again, like versus cycling, because it's just used to it. But I selected my product. Well, I selected my product pretty easily. It's Velo Forte product, you know, which are guys I have a sponsorship deal with, but it's a brand I love, and I have a sponsorship deal with them because it's a brand I love, because it's all natural product. After about 10 minutes of starting, I started taking on carb-laden fluid from my backpack and the little bottle on my chest. I got through everything that I had, almost. Bar handing out one Doppio gel to a fellow runner who was in a bit of cramp problem, a bit of a cramp scenario. And honestly, I felt great throughout the entirety of the marathon. And I am very happy with the decision that I made to carb up aggressively. I was consistent throughout, I was in control throughout. I could regulate my heart rate. I didn't hit any kind of wall, I had no struggles. My pace dropped from my first sort of 10 kilometers to my last 10 kilometers, 12 seconds per kilometer, which when you're running just over 4.5 minute kilometers isn't much. So I was super happy with what happened. And honestly, like, the marathon is very well supported. I think water, there's plenty, and it's in bottles, so it's super easy in that respect. In terms of carbs and electrolytes, it's not quite enough, I don't think. Unless you are very good at getting everything out of a cup in terms of Lucozade, which I just was not confident of at all. It's very difficult to get that down your neck. Gels are handed out, but honestly, knowing how aggressively I would need to carb for an event that's going to take me that long, and I think that's the biggest takeaway. We see the elite runners in a vest and a pair of shorts. It takes them just over 2 hours. That's very different to a 3.5. I did 3 hours 23. It's very different to a 3 hours 23 threshold effort, and that is very different to a 5 hour threshold effort as well. So like, they're on the limit of needing very little to nothing, whereas if anything's taking you far longer, you're gonna need much more. So yeah, I was happy. I was very happy with my decision. And honestly, the last 10 kilometers at times was a bit of a war zone, with people walking, stretching out cramp. There was a few poor souls on stretchers that had really overcooked things. So yeah, I was happy. And then the other thing we chatted about was shoe choice. I was very happy with my shoe choice in the end, and I want to thank everyone that said go with the comfortable shoes over the ones that give you blisters, even if there might be a slight performance difference. And to be honest, at my level, I don't think there would have been much of a performance difference. So yeah, I was super happy with these. I believe On are coming out with a very fast version of these pretty soon, which, well, I'm not going to need because I'm going to be riding a bike again. Should the running bug get me again, well then maybe. With the nutrition, I found fluid super easy to get in. I found gels super easy to get in. Gels, much like on the bike, when I'm racing, gels were always my go-to because it's just tear off and it's in, swallowed, done. The chews were very good. I think given my time again, I would still have chews, reduce the amount of chews, but increase the amount of gels I took. I think that was how I just adjust my strategy slightly. But then maybe even, adhere to the comments and try and reduce the fluid on me that I'm carrying a little bit more, rely on the water from the side of the road, because there was enough, and load up on gels even more so. I think the last point to note was getting to and from the marathon. And this might be quite a small thing. I was useless. I was a useless human being. I relied solely on Chanel for logistics because that's not something I've ever had to do. I really missed my team bus. I missed my soigneurs. I missed my mechanics. I had to walk 5,000 steps before we even started the marathon because we have to get there. And it was, I think the funniest bit was where we were recommended to get public transport, which Chanel and I did, which included buses, most of which were cancelled because there was a London Marathon on, and that irony was not lost on me. There's something now as an amateur racer I need to work on a little bit more is my logistics. Yeah, because we relied solely on Chanel. I think the last thing was just, you know, the community, the positivity, the joy of the day. The crowds were insane. Both sides of the roads, just the whole way. The only time I've raced in front of something like that before is the Tour of Britain or the Tour de France, where the crowds have been notably mental. Some real genius signs, mostly about how our government is run versus how we were running. I'll let you draw your own conclusions as to which one they thought was better. And the fancy dress. Well, I was racing a Big Ben for most of the day, and how fast some of the fancy dress runners are. Yeah, what an event. What an event. Even to you cyclists that are watching, I do recommend it. Chris Newton was there. He ran it in 2 hours 39, which is mental. I do thoroughly recommend an event like that because it is a completely different set of emotions, a different dynamic, a different everything to a bike race. And that's not to say one's better than the other, it's to say that they're all worth experiencing. I'm glad I did. I'm glad Chanel and I got to do an event together, like both doing the same event. That was great, and I'm glad our daughter was at the finish line ready to miss us completely running by. But you know, she had a fun day as well, and I think it sets a great example to the younger generation. And yeah, and just above all, the amount of money raised for charity must have been mental, because I think most people were running for charity, most people raised over a couple of grand. Times that by 50,000. That's big, it's a lot of zeros. So thank you to those that supported, thanks to those watching, thanks to Win Your Dream Bike for sponsoring this channel and supporting charity, and thank you for supporting the channel. See you soon.